What is up, people? Van from the Vaniverse Gaming Channel here, and I am back with another video on Conan Exiles. So, I have not played Conan Exiles in a while, solely because it got a little stale for me. Got into WoW Classic for a little bit, dropped out of that, and just work and school kind of got the best of me. So that's why I haven't posted videos in a while. But these changes that they just put out as of today, December 5th, might be a reason for me to go back and play the game. So, back in February, I did one of these videos where I went over the patch notes and just kind of explained to you guys some of the big changes and how I felt about them. I'd like to do the same thing because a lot of people liked it and how it was done, so we're going to do it again. So welcome to my Word document on the patch notes, and let's begin. So first things first, the big feature that's coming are mounts. Everyone has been asking for mounts. A lot of people quit the game, and because of not having mounts in sorcery, I think they're trying to go with what the people want. And Joel, if you guys remember, he got on stream many times, said mounts are not possible. We just don't have the ability to do it. But because the community was so strong on it, they actually reconfigured a lot of the stuff and actually put mounts in. And Joel was just on a stream recently and said, you know, apologies, you know, I didn't think it could be done. The dev team did it. Congrats to them. So when we say mounts, we don't mean anything. We mean horses. So you can call this a horse feature, not a mount feature. You can only ride horses. There's different kinds of horses. There's saddles. You can fight on them. There's mounted combat, the whole thing. So those are all the big changes that are coming. You can see there's also new building placements. So similar to how animals have animal pens, horses will have stables, thralls have wheels, etc. So we'll get into that a little bit more. The other thing that's coming that I think is really big is Thrall Pet leveling and a Thrall cap. So you'll see that Thralls now level up. So basically, when you put a Thrall on your wheel or you put a tiger in your animal pen and you come out, as soon as you place him in the world, he's going to have stats. And he's going to start out at level 0. And he's going to go up to level 20. And each time you place one, the stats that it's given are different. And it also changes based on who you bring back, like which thrall you bring back and all of that. And then as you level up, they can put in points into perks just like you can put points into perks. It's quite a cool little system. And the goal was to give you pets that you felt like you didn't want to lose, because right now you can go out, you can knock down one of the highest level tier 4 fighters and he comes already ready to rock, and you can do that all the time, and then you just have a base littered with thralls and nobody has any chance of getting through it because they're just these strong thralls that you can't kill. Now when you put them down, their base level is 0, so they're very easy to take out. And so I think the whole goal was to make it where you want to have a good amount of really tough pets, but you also are worried about losing them, so you're going to be more strategic about where you put them and what gear you give them, which I thought it was really cool. And so this is for both the animal pets and thralls. Even your horse. So the horses that are coming out will also have the same stats like before. Now, they did say they're going to cap the amount of pets you can have. I believe it's 60 or 50 if you're a single player. And then depending on how many people you have in your guild, I think you add 5. So it starts at 60, and then if you have 2 people in your clan, it's 65, 3 people, it's 70, and it goes all the way up to a max of 100 that you can have around. And they talked about how it's going to work and how you can, you know, if you have more than 100 already or more than 60, we can go into what they talked about with that. So with the new mount system and the new pet leveling, it seems like it's a refreshing enough to come back to the game and try it out, but we'll go into that as well. They also added in another feature called the Apprentice Butcher, which gives you stone skinning knives and cleavers. So up until this point, you couldn't have a cleaver or a skinning knife until you got to the level of iron. So to add in the stone version, I think is a nice little touch. Also in conjunction with the mounts, they've added a new weapon to the game called lances. It says they cannot be used while on foot, but they do very high damage when used unmounted. It increased based on the movement speed of the player. So basically, you can pull out a lance when you're walking around, but you can't attack with it. So once you're on your horse, you can actually use it to attack. And the damage is based on your charge. So just think about jousting. You're charging, you're galloping on your horse, you got your lance out, and you hit something. The faster you're moving when you hit that thing, the more damage you're going to do to it. So if you have two guys jousting and they're both running at full speed and they both hit each other at the same time, the amount of damage that both players are going to take is going to be very high. But if one is chasing the other and he hits the guy from the back, because the guy is running away, the damage isn't going to be as much because of the speed that the guy you're chasing is going. Hopefully that makes sense and I explained that well. Another little feature is they added another armor set that can be dropped from the wine cellar boss. And now the wine cellar boss has a 1% chance to drop the weapon that he uses himself. So 1% is a pretty darn rare chance. So it gives you a reason to farm the wine cellar to get that item if you really want it. So those are the big features. Now let's talk about some of the other changes that I feel are worth explaining. Buildings, the spikes and palisades recipes have gotten easier to build. They've changed. I remember trying to make spikes. They cost a lot of wood to do them. It felt like it was a lot of a waste to make them because it was such a huge amount. So the fact that they're making them easier to build, I think, is very good. They're easier to place. Some of the way they were pain in the butt to place, and same with the siege foundations. When you first laid that first siege foundation, it was such a pain to get it the right level, height-wise, and move it around and get it to actually place. So the fact that they made that easier is really nice. Ceiling, hatch frames, and crenulated walls now snap to the bottom of stairs. I think this is a cool little addition that you couldn't do in the past. So these are just little ones. So let's now get into the combat side. This is where some of the bigger changes will come a little bit down here. So combat. Siege bolters no longer bounce from the bottom of water. So before, if you launch one and it hit in the water, it would bounce off the ground underwater and then do damage. On top of that, hammers no longer penetrate shields on the first attack, so you can block that first hammer hit so you don't get hit by the combo. Because once you get hit by that first hammer hit, the combo, you're pretty much done. So being able to block that first attack, very nice. The two-hand overhead smash has been reduced by 1/3. It's also slowed down, and the stamina cost has been reduced. So basically, they made it where it doesn't drain as much stamina and does a huge hit, but it takes less stamina but doesn't do as much damage as it used to do. So I feel like I used to use the two-hander. I loved it a lot. That overhand smash was quite insane. So I think they needed to tweak it a little bit to make it not as crazy, especially if you could knock a guy down. If you could get a guy down and you could hit him with an overhand smash while they're laying on the ground, I mean, you're dead. It's crazy. Daggers got a little bit of a nerf. The hyper armor during swings has been reduced, and the stamina costs throughout combos have been slightly increased. So if you did your daggers correctly, you could pretty much stutter a guy where basically every hit made them stutter, and the stamina cost to do that was very low. So you could just keep doing the same combo over and over again, and the guy would never move. Like, he would just die. So I like that they're increasing the stamina cost of that, because I feel like it was a little bit of a cheese. If you watch any of my videos, I use daggers on pretty much everything just because I thought they were completely OP. The two-handed hammer speed and hyper armor for light swings have been reduced. The two-handed hammer became the new meta, basically. It was better than the spear, and a lot of people were running around with it, so that needed a bit of a nerf. And then they buffed the mace here. It now has hyper armor during your swings for the first 2 light attacks. So that's good, because the mace pretty much did not work if you couldn't get that first swing off. You had to get the first 2 swings off to get a good mace combo in, and right before you'd go to swing, if you'd get a hit, it would keep stuttering that silly first swing, and it would totally make maces useless to use in combat. Two-hand swords are now slightly faster combo queuing. Great Axe has gotten slightly increased damage through combos and will speed up after the first spin. So a lot of people were not using the Great Axe, so this is a nice little buff to that. And then I thought this was interesting. Serpent Men weapons have been reduced in damage. So basically, Serpent Men weapons were probably some of the strongest weapons in the game pretty much leaps and bounds above a lot of the other weapon sets. So the fact that they nerfed it makes sense to me, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset about that. All right, so let's get into the companion system is what they're calling it now. Thralls, Pets, Companions. So it is now possible to rename your place thralls. So that's pretty cool. Before, you could only rename your pets. Now you can rename your place thralls as well, which I thought is really cool because it'd be fun to, now that you have a pet or a thrall or a companion that is going to follow you around and you're going to like, hey, that's my dude, that's my guy. And you're going to level him up and you're going to gear him. You can name him too. I think that's pretty cool. It's now possible to feed your thralls, provided leveling up combat bonus to them again. Feeding pets will also heal them and mount a present to their inventories and will be eaten slowly over time. So basically drop some food in there and they're going to keep healing over time. They'll keep eating it. Here's the big change that I wanted to talk to you about, which I mentioned earlier. This new break bonds feature. So they cap the amount of thralls you have. So basically say you have 100 and you are only allowed 60. So you have 40 thralls you need to get rid of. In the old days, the only way you could like get rid of a thrall is you just kill him. You just killed your own companion and then you go from there. This new break bonds ability lets you go up to him, break bonds, and it will dismiss him from being your pet and employee in the world. They will drop any equipment or inventory they have on themselves when dismissed in this fashion. So basically, you're dismissing them as being one of your pets, of your companions, and then you can take the gear that they're going to drop on the ground. So this is a way to eliminate the thralls and pets that you don't want so you can get down to the cap that is put in place. So it's not like they're just going to randomly wipe out 40 guys that you have and you don't get to choose. You can go and choose which ones you want to get rid of, and then you break bonds with those, and then you'll go forward from there. And here's the one that used to annoy me more than anything, is they would instantly eat the full stack of consumables after a server restart. That's no longer there. Purges, I just like this. They put a new armor from the Purge that can make redeemed Silent Legion armor, which is a flawless version of the Silent Legion, provided you have unlocked defeat. So getting a flawless Silent Legion is still one of my favorites. They nerfed it over a couple months. You know, they keep nerfing it, but I still love it. I think it's one of the coolest looking armors, especially paired with the T-Lith. I love it. It's one of my favorite sets. So the fact that they're giving you a flawless version is pretty cool. All right, balancing. So the main balancing changes they made is in regards to the trebuchet. So a lot of you, if you're coming back, the Treb basically was a great low-end raiding tool. It does a lot of damage. It's easy, pretty easy to make, but the problem with it is the range, the angle, and it was really hard to hit a lot of bases. So a lot of these people would basically make these bases up on these huge towers, and you couldn't get to them with explosive arrows. You couldn't get to them. So the only way you could destroy them was with gods. Well, if you're not playing on a private server and you're playing on one of the normal public servers, gods are disabled. So people could just make these bases, and you basically couldn't do anything to them. So the whole point of the Treb is to give you the ability to hit those bases with a Treb. So they changed the angle, which you can set. You actually can see the angle on the Treb now on an 80 degrees or negative 20 degrees. So basically, you can set the angle to 80 degrees, and it's pretty much almost upright, and hit the things right below you. Or you can set it to negative 20 and get a huge arc on it and shoot it dang near straight up in the air and hit the stuff really high up on a tower. So they made it to where if you're up on that tower, you can shoot Trebs down, almost like a straight angle down. And also, if you're on the bottom and there's a base way up on a tower, you can hit it pretty high up there. And they also made it shoot extremely far. They said 2.5 times. So the max distance, if you put all the counterbalance in there, the max distance you could fire a Treb is now 2.5 times further. And I saw it on the playtest. If you watch some of the videos where they tested it out, they shoot it so far it goes out of your field of view range. So you can't even see it. You can't even see where it lands because it goes past what has been rendered. So that's pretty cool. They also said that it's now easier to maintain. There's no longer an iron reinforcement to build, but other resources have increased. So one of the biggest pains in the butt was making the iron reinforcements before you place down your treb, and then bringing some stuff with you to keep repairing the treb. So that has been changed. You need more of the normal stuff like the twine and the wood and all that, but you don't need the iron reinforcements. On top of that, your treb no longer breaks every time you fire it. So the old treb, basically, once you would fire it, you'd have to repair it. You'd fire it, you'd repair it. If you fired it like 5 times, it would just break. That no longer happens. The only way the treb takes damage is if you get damage from another player hitting your treb and damaging your treb. And the hit points of the treb and the foundations has increased significantly. So I believe their goal here is they want to make the treb a more useful raiding tool, because at this point it's not used very often. You put one on your base as like protection, and sometimes people bring them along, but they just are not very good. So everyone just farms gods, and they just do, you know, it's just not been viable in Siege PvP. So now with these changes, I think they're hoping for treb wars, where these guilds or clans are going to bring 4 or 5 trebs, and they're going to try and treb down a base, and then that base is going to have trebs, and they're going to fire them back and get into the old school like treb wars. You can also see that siege boulders no longer cost twine, but it takes more stone. So the boulders no longer need twine to be made. They're just a big stone boulder. And the siege boulders and the demon fire has had their damage increased. So see that. They've increased the damage of the siege stuff, and the missiles can now pass through God Shields. So this was one a lot of people had issues with, but if you have an avatar protection on, which basically you have your tier 3, you put your high priest on, and then you get your god bubble. You couldn't treb through a god bubble. It would hit and it would bounce off. Now you can treb through god bubbles. So what people were doing is, since gods were basically eliminated from the game on public servers, they would build a base way high, they'd put a god bubble on it, and they would just keep refreshing their god bubble. And the base was impossible to raid. Now, with the changes to the treb, you can't just get on, farm your manifestations, and just keep your base protected. Now you got to understand that people can now treb through that, and they can treb your base. So it adds a little bit more risk to building. There's not as many safe places as there used to be. And this is what I was telling you before. They no longer take damage when they're fired. So basically, when you fire it, it's not going to take damage every time you fire it. It will only take damage if you get it, if it gets hit with someone from the enemy faction. The AoE from siege boulders has been reduced in size. So this was a big thing with siege boulders. If you never used the treb, it was almost better to hit in front of what you were aiming and let it bounce into what you were trying to hit, because of the AoE damage and the damage it did. If you hit something like directly on, it didn't do hardly any damage. But if it bounced into it, the amount of AoE damage it did was just insane. So the fact that they reduced the size of AoE damage, I think that's pretty cool, because then it gives you, I think they're trying to make your ability to target what you want to hit much easier. So if I want to knock the door down, I can now aim it much better, have more accurate firing, and on top of that, the AoE is not going to wipe out the whole base. I'm just going to knock out the door. And then they removed the stairs that lead up to the siege platform, which were kind of silly because they kind of prevented you from putting one down. It was just annoying, so they moved that. So that's a lot to bring in. If you guys have any questions about what I'm saying, or if you think I'm saying something that's not correct, please post them in the comments below. But hopefully this video has been helpful to this point. So let's get into some of the other stuff. Dodging. So this is another really big change coming to the game that it's actually going to cramp my style a little bit, but they have now added dodging is hugely affected by the gear you're wearing and your agility score. So basically, if you're in light armor with high agility, it's going to look like it used to look, where instantaneously you can dodge roll, and you can dodge roll very far. Now, what they've done is your dodge roll is exactly the same for light, medium, and heavy. So it looks the same. You do this crazy little like ninja barrel roll. So if you ever take martial arts and they show you how to roll correctly, It's basically that type of roll, and then they kind of have like a football like side roll, like you roll to the side. If you do not have a high agility score and you're wearing heavy armor, it almost looks like you're 500 pounds. It's almost like you bend down on your knees and hands, then you slowly roll over, and then you got to push yourself back up. So what they were doing is people were basically able to engage, attack, and just instantly dodge roll. So everyone was rolling around in light armor, and they were just basically attacking and dodge rolling, and it was real kind of cheesy, basically. That's what everyone did. It was a cheesy way to fight him. Now they're kind of getting rid of that, where you have to put points in agility to have that style of combat. So the people who are trying to run around in heavy and still able to do, you know, it's going to be a lot different. I've seen it in the play test. It's going to feel really weird, but the whole purpose of this is if you're going to commit to attacking somebody, you can't instantly disengage. So what I used to do with my daggers, if I started attacking something and it was about ready to do its big hit on me and I didn't time it correctly, I could easily just stop what I'm doing and dodge roll out. Now, because the dodge roll is so long, if they do their attack and I wait too long, I'm going to get hit. By the time my dodge roll completes, they're going to hit me. So it makes it where you have to commit more to the attacks you're doing, because if you don't time them right, you're going to get punished. That's basically what they're trying to do. The Nimble Tumbler perk has been reworked to double armor values while dodging. Climbing now takes a minimal amount of stamina to perform, and it's no longer possible to climb free using specific combination of gear. So basically how climbing worked is, you know, you could start climbing no matter how much stamina you had, and now it doesn't matter what you have to have a minimum amount of stamina to even start the climb. So that's a big change. And then with all of the changes to like the gear, if you had certain gear, certain stats, etc., you would never run out of stamina. So I did a climbing video in January of this year, and I think I was up to, I don't know, it was like 100 foundations with all the stuff, and I don't even think I had upgraded climbing stuff. I don't recall. I feel like you could climb forever. And so they're trying to eliminate a lot of this like climb forever, do whatever. You know what I mean? I like the change where you can't even start the climb unless you have a certain amount of stamina, and I also like that people can't climb up to wherever they want, because a lot of people got upset with raiders because they could get up to your base and basically they could blow it up. I mean, there's ways to prevent that, but I think it's a necessary change. That's all I'm going to say. T1 and Tier 2 fences now stop climbing. I think that's really cool. It used to only be Tier 3 fences, so that's a good change for a lot of the people that have the lower level tiers of bases. It was easy to climb up on their base and destroy it, and I like that they're adding that in. There might be other reasons why they're doing this. If other people know more, please leave it in the comments. Adjusted based armor sets to put the temperature resistance on par with DLC armors. This was always our intention. So that's good, because a lot of people would complain about how the DLC armors were better than the standard armors in the game and that it was pay to win to buy DLCs. So I think they're trying to get rid of that stigma. They claim it was supposed to be that way. I don't know. Strength perk. So this is another big change. It used to grant 25% bonus damage. Now it's down to 15. So I know a lot of people would run around with mainly a strength. I used to do strength stam, or strength grit is what it is, or grit and I forget what the other build I was. So the fact that they're making this less is actually a good reason to not go as high up into the strength perk, so you can put points everywhere else. Healing from healing arrows have been reduced. I haven't really tried this out, but they were pretty overpowered. I know using them, you could heal your pets especially. So I'm in PvP, which I haven't done a lot of, especially the big group PvP. I'm sure it was kind of OP to be able to heal your party members with that. Increase the amount of corruption removed from Cleansing Brew. I used to never use Cleansing Brew because it just wasn't worth it. The materials to make it and what it did, I just felt like it was kind of a waste. But the fact that it increases how much corruption is removed, it's probably maybe worth getting these now. So good idea here to have something to clear corruption going forward. Several base resources have had their max stacks increased. I always love when they do this. They did it with wood, they did it with stone, and there were still a couple other where they needed to do it, get it up to 1,000, so that's nice. And then this one actually makes me sad. Players can no longer avoid fall damage by landing on an NPC. I used to have a base, and we would put a huge pet, rhino, elephant, whatever, at the bottom. And then you would just jump out of the door, fall a couple hundred foundations, land on the elephant, and you'd take 0 damage. So the fact that that is not the case anymore kind of makes me sad. But, oh well, it was kind of broken, and now it's changed. And then last, they reduced the weight of seeds. I think that's just a minimal change that is, you know, something that needs change, quality of life kind of deal, and so on. So that's pretty much it. To summarize, basically, mounts, you got the thrall system changing, the trebs changing, and those are really the main changes that are coming with this build. I'd love to hear what you all think about it. Is this enough to bring you back to the game? Me personally, I may start playing it, but my issue with the game is it's no longer. I feel like the game has 3 identities, right? They're trying to be a solo player game. They're trying to be a game for the RP community, and they're trying to be a PvP game like Rust. And I don't think it does well with all 3 of those. And I feel like the one that's failing is the PvP one. I feel like the clan-based PvP is kind of failing right now in the game, and that it's not fun. And I think that's what they're trying to do. I feel like they know they have their RP player base, and they've done a really good job with all this mounted combat, the thrall leveling system. They're really making it where the game is worth buying just for a solo player, which I think is pretty cool. Because at this point in my life and with my schedule, playing solo player, it might actually be worth it now, and I might go back and play it. So just what do you guys think? Post it in the comments below. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I hope I explained everything. If I didn't, leave it in the comments, and I'll answer all the comments you guys leave. This is Van from the Vaniverse Gaming Channel. Appreciate you all watching. Cheers. Peace out.